Well, with their backs against the wall, the New York Yankees came roaring back in Game 4 to make this an interesting series. Question of mark? I don't know, but we're going to talk about it right now. Don't go anywhere. I got this guy with me. We're going to talk about World Series Game 4 in 30 seconds. And welcome into another edition of the PHNX Diamondbacks podcast. At least that's what I'm allegedly calling this show these days. Right here on PHNX. My name is Derek Monti, occasionally known as your mayor of PHNX. This man next to me is the one, the only Dalton Feely, of course, part-time and all-around great guy. Dalton, thanks for joining me, man.
Pleasure to be here, Derek. Listen, our snakes are out. There's a common enemy, I think, for a lot of the United States right now, or I'm just being biased. Let's go Yanks. It's awesome. Pleasure to be back, guys.
What are the vibes like right now in New York? I know things have to be exciting, but still a little, I guess, worried about this series.
Yeah, so it was a lot better going into Friday. Let me put it that way. Jimmy, Jake, everyone in the office, the majority of the Yankee fans, the outlook today, it was tough. 3-0 in the World Series. No team has ever come back. So it was kind of like a little bit of a pre-funeral, very grim. But hopefully we're going to talk about it. This could be the step in the right direction, taking a big win today.
It's a huge win. Yankees win by a score of 11-4 and force a Game 5. This is just the fourth time, Dalton, in MLB history that a team down 3-0 has forced a Game 5, which sounds kind of crazy considering history is what it is. But we have this graphic, and it just once again shows how difficult this is as far as a feat is concerned, right? Like typically when you are down 3-0 in the World Series, you are not in a great place. And usually it's because you're kind of overmatched by your opponent. So that's why in these occasions, we've seen the 4-game sweep 21 times. But now we've seen 4 that have at least forced the Game 5, and no team has forced a game beyond that in the World Series, which again is just crazy with the way that baseball goes. I mean, we know we remember that time. I'm sure you remember that time that one of those teams from Boston did that thing against New York. We don't need to bring that up, but this was a big step, I guess, in the right direction, obviously, considering that they avoided the sweep, and they could be in historic territory come tomorrow with Garrett Cole on the mound. So we'll get to that here shortly, and we will talk some Diamondbacks, but we need to talk about this game because it started like every game in this series has started with Freddie Freeman hitting a home run. This man cannot be stopped. He is, in fact, the Freddie Krueger of the Yankees nightmare. He homered again in the first inning. He scores Mookie Betts on a 2-run dinger. He's now homered in 6 straight World Series games. And I mean, it felt like deja vu, right? It felt like, here we go again. The Dodgers get out to score. And pretty much as we've seen, I think they said in the last 8 games in the World Series, the first team to score wins the game.
As Yogi Berra once said, it's deja vu all over again. Freddie Freeman has been torturing the New York Yankees. Listen, 6 straight games sets a record, World Series record for most consecutive games with a home run. So that's a very impressive feat going back to his days with Atlanta in 2021. So shout out Freddie Freeman in that regard. Listen, he had the grand slam in Game 1, obviously the big moment. He's had that bum ankle this entire postseason, so it's
right.
Pretty impressive how well he's had that stroke going in this World Series. But I'm going to give a little bit of a slash to the Dodgers here. Last couple home runs Freddie's hit, he's barely gotten over that short porch. I mean, and they're talking about it. Even Joe Davis, that Dodger guy, was saying if it was in any other stadium, that ball's not out. So I guess it's been luck on his side too. No, in all seriousness, if the Dodgers, and they're probably going to win the series, when, not if the Dodgers win this series, Freddie Freeman's going to be your MVP, and he's just been playing out of his mind. I know all of New York hates him right now.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I can see, of course, where you're coming from, but the Yankees tonight, they were impressive. I thought that their offense really woke up. I thought that they did a great job here of making this series interesting, even if it's just one win, right? Because mostly the offense just looks so great. Anthony Volpe became a Yankees legend, I feel like, in this one game. So much offense from him. First player ever with 4+ RBI and 2+ stolen bases in a World Series game. It felt like every time the offense was doing anything, it was him generating it. He gets the first run on the Alex Verdugo ground out, but he made that happen by getting a walk and then stealing second and then scoring that run. He hits the huge grand slam in the third inning, and that just seemed to wake everybody on the offense up. It did feel like he was doing it by himself there for a minute, and like he was the sole one that was not going to let this game slip away.
I just want to emphasize the fact, I mean, Anthony Volpe, still a young player, I believe 23, 24, playing in front of his, team that he grew up rooting for, loving as a fan, playing shortstop for the New York Yankees, and he hits a grand slam in the World Series to give his team a lead and save their season. I mean, that is a storybook scene for Anthony Volpe in his young career, and that's an impressive feat. Great point about Volpe really getting that offense going for the Yankees. I guess the fun fact, not so for the Yankees, that Volpe grand slam at the bottom of the third inning was the first inning since the ninth inning of Game 2 where the Yankees scored on a non-Alex Verdugo RBI. And if we're talking about Alex Verdugo being the engine of the Yankees offense in the World Series, that's a
Yeah.
little bit of a problem, right?
Right.
So shout out Anthony Volpe. He really swung the tide with one swing with 2 outs. The Yankees in the first 3 innings, they were leaving runners on base. We're talking about deja vu with Freddie Freeman and the home runs. The Yankees, their offense has been okay, but they've been really struggling with runners in scoring position. They did it in the first, leaving 2 runners on base. They had the base running gaff by Volpe, where he should have scored on the Austin Wells double. Luckily, they get 1 out of it. And then the grand slam, they finally executed with runners on base.
Yeah. And I mean, again, it's even after that, right? This game got close once again. In the 8th inning, he doubles, he steals third again, second stolen base, scores on a fielder's choice in the 8th, kind of beats that throwout at home. And I mean, he just again, it's like when you see another player on your team giving that effort single-handedly and trying, again, trying to win the game on his own, you can't help but get energized by that, right? You can't help but want to go in and do everything you can to help that teammate who's just killing it on this night, win this ball game, put this one away, because it did get close. Part of it was that crazy fan interference that happened that everybody online is talking about. One of the craziest fan interference calls I've ever seen in my life, mostly based on the fact of this particular Yankees fan, his antics, his effort, if you will, because we really didn't know what happened, right? We see the first clip, Betts goes into the stands. We do notice that it seemed like it took a little bit longer in real time than it typically does for a player to attempt to catch a, foul ball. But then Betts starts pointing up and kind of yelling to the umpire, and the umpire calls, it was Gleyber Torres again. Gleyber Torres, another fan interference call. They call him out, right? But we go back and we see that. We see in slow motion. We see in 4K this Yankee fan get caught ripping the ball out of Mookie Betts' hand along with the assistance of his friend there. And my favorite guy, the guy in the back who's just staring incredulously. He can't believe it's going on. He's kind of looking on in approval and also disappointment. Like he's embarrassed to be around these guys and also embarrassed to be a fan of the game of baseball. As this character, from a sketch comedy show, pulls this ball out of Mookie Betts' hand. And I will just say, I'm conflicted by this. On one hand,
how are you conflicted by this?
I'm conflicted because on one hand, I feel like this man should be arrested and banned from every stadium in baseball for the rest of his life and never allowed to enjoy the game again. On the other hand, to be so bold, to be so brash, to really, he's the Anthony Volpe in a way of fans. He did everything he could to ensure that his team won. But yeah, all jokes aside, like Jay Cuddy says right here, imagine if they hurt Mookie. We would have nets everywhere next year. Fans would never be allowed to touch a foul ball or a home run ball ever again. If it just bounced off the outfield net, it would be a home run. That's exactly how it would be.
Your explanation and just seeing the pictures and videos again, like I have to pick my jaw off the floor. Like not only
amazing.
This was the Yankees' first batter of the game in a do or die World Series game at home, bottom of the first, trailing 2-0. The first out they made was because a fan basically assaults Mookie Betts from trying to prevent him and making a catch. Like, you cannot write this freaking story.
Yeah.
Like, you know what? I'm going tinfoil hat. You know what? Speaking of story, what if Apple, he's a plant by Apple. They're making a documentary. It's a 3-0 series, and they need something. They needed some juicy topic. They already had one Gleyber Torres interference. You know what? Screw it. We're giving him 2.
I would not be surprised if that man was on Rob Manfred's personal payroll to ensure that we got more games when you were averaging 14.5 million viewers while going up against, Monday Night Football, right? No,
right.
They want this series to go on. But this man wanted this series to go on. And I don't know, like, it was incredibly stupid. It's incredibly dangerous. It's You and I were talking about it before we got on air. Like, there's no way that you could justify this guy doing this, nor I want to put this out there. Don't get it in your goddamn heads that he's a good luck charm. He might have spawned something. I'm not going to say that he didn't ignite a fire, but this man was escorted out of the building before he got to see a single run scored. So there is no way he could be a good luck charm because he was not physically present when all of the scoring took place. I'm just saying. I just want to put that out there so that we can put to bed any kind of grimace scenario.
If people start doing this, like that's the worst outcome in this situation, where people think he's a good luck charm and then continuously try to.
I'm going to do it too when I get a chance. Yeah.
No, are you going to fly to LA if they go to Game 6 and then just disrupt any Dodgers voodoo or magic that they have right now?
I mean, you gotta do everything you can to get the series, right? You gotta do everything.
I do want to say, I mean, we talked about off camera, like you're saying, but yeah, as a fan, like you're down 3-0, you're rooting for your team, but like it kind of put a little bit of a jolt in them. It's like,
he's going to be a hero in New York. Is he not going to be a hero in New York?
Derek, I guarantee you, when I go into the office tomorrow, I bet you someone, and I'm gonna guess it's Joe's McFly because Joe's McFly is hilarious, is gonna love this guy and want a shirt of this guy.
I was gonna say he's already got his email address or something.
The anti-Steve Bartman.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
He did it, but he knew what he was doing.
He knew what he was doing, and he helped this team. And then instead of screwing around this team.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I mean, it was just insane. And of course, it makes it crazier that it happens in Game 4 of the World Series. My God, right?
And he's our king snake of the game.
No, we don't do that anymore. We don't do that. Don't listen to him, Kevin. Remember, we got in trouble last time.
I didn't get in trouble.
They didn't like it. We gave it to Yamamoto, and we'll never hear the end of it. This Yankees offense, though, again, they got cracking after that. Austin Wells adds that solo home run to give the Yankees some breathing room. You have that big 8th inning. Volpe, again, big part of getting that going. And then with 2 on, Gleyber Torres finally hit a ball that wasn't interfered with, 3-run home run, and that kind of put things away. But then you even had Juan Soto and Aaron Judge finally kind of wake up. They get going, double for Soto and an RBI single there for Judge. But, like, I don't know. There's something about what Austin Wells said post-game, right? They asked him, like, what was your attitude coming into this game? And he just said, I just said, screw it. That's what he said. He said, I just said, screw it. We're down 3-0. Screw it. Like, at this point, let's just go out there and try to play baseball, right? And I mean, this Yankees team, they definitely seem, uncharacteristic of the way they played baseball throughout this season, right? We know this happens. We know it ends up being, sometimes those big stars that get you to the postseason shy away, the way that Aaron Judge has struggled this postseason, the way you haven't really seen Juan Soto be the hero that you would think he should be. Stanton, he's done his share throughout the postseason, but again, those guys haven't really showed up in this World Series, and that's something that still could get going at any point. Like, that's the dangerous part about the Yankees.
Yeah.
Once this engine gets going and those guys get warmed up, I mean, that there's still a lot of firepower that right now has been struggling, but could turn things around at any point.
So yeah, the one thing I really want to say about this game with Dave Roberts and the Dodgers here on their side of it, they really took this game as not a throwaway game, like not that they weren't trying to win, but it was a bullpen game like they've been
Yeah.
doing. But they didn't go to any of their A-list guys. Like it was
Sure.
Landon Knack for 4 innings, and sure, Landon Knack pitched great, but Daniel Hudson, Brent Honeywell, like they had their struggles. And the big fear for me, not to say that it's going to make a major impact, but for the Yankees' hope, the one thing that I took from the end of that game, that big eighth inning, was that Judge and Soto, they made some contact, some hard contact, got on base, had some positive results, right? And that's where we haven't really seen from Judge, especially this postseason. But even Soto, the last 2 games in New York, he's had his struggles too offensively. No hits, but he had been walking. Hopefully, Game 5 for the Yankees offense, you want Judge, you want Soto to have more confidence at the plate and execute like they had been doing in the regular season. They did it late in the game today, and hopefully that carries over for the Yankees.
I'm still just skeptical. I agree with you. I said it on yesterday's show. Like, the Dodgers have the ability to turn to a bullpen game here if it works out for them and they keep this kind of struggling Yankees offense off balance by going to a bunch of different arms. Then it could work out. If not, then they're still up 3-1 and they're still in a really good position, right? But I feel like there's got to be a point, and as long as the Yankees can figure out a way to extend this series, maybe one more game, there has to be a point where this Dodgers bullpen is just so taxed that you start to see, the stamina, the exhaustion impact them in some way. I don't know. I mean, we have Archie on the show. He always talks about how, like, during the postseason, you're just a different animal as a player, as an athlete. But I still feel like after 162 games and then going through a fairly long stretch during the postseason that, this usage of the Dodgers bullpen and the need to have bullpen games and the need to have just kind of guys throwing every single day has to catch up with them at some point. And feels like pitching is still their biggest weakness, despite the fact that it hasn't been for them up to this point.
Not to bring our snakes involved, but we kind of know a thing or two about a bullpen game in the World Series.
Mm-hmm.
There's been
We
different
sure do,
results from that.
pal.
But going back on the
We
Dodgers
just
side,
weren't up 3-0 when we did it.
yeah, it's a little bit of a different circumstance there. I will say for the Dodgers point, like you mentioned, they're up 3-1 still. They didn't use any of their A bullpen. They have Jack Flaherty going, who looked pretty darn good last time, besides his hamstring tightness and giving up that moonshot to Giancarlo in his first matchup with the Yankees. I do want to say, you had that graphic up, which was awesome by the production team out. The sweeps, 4 games, 5 games. No one's made it to 6 games being down 3-0 in the World Series. Awesome putting that up. Thank you. I just want to point out, if the Yankees somehow manage to beat Jack Flaherty in the A bullpen in this great offense tomorrow, and you fly back to LA, the momentum starts to shift just a little bit. The Dodgers are still 99% in my book, they're going to win. But if Game 5, if the Yankees find something, you're flying back, you have the off day, momentum's back on your side. Just put it out there, Derek. It is something that's unprecedented to Game 6, and the postseason can be a little bit of a different beast.
It really can. And I mean, again, there is something to be said about how, the Dodgers did have their struggles. They struggled against the Padres team. They, I've said it a bunch of times on the show. The Padres team poked the bear way too early, and we got to see the results of that. And I mean, sometimes that kind of situation, how crazy that game got between those two teams at at their home stadium is enough to maybe galvanize a team and bring them together and help them, kind of give them that push that they need, especially considering how incredibly talented and incredibly stacked they already are to make the run that they've made. But again, maybe the gas runs out a little bit here. The Yankees bullpen was lights out tonight, and that's something that again is could be a difference, especially with how close these games have been at times. Today's game wasn't really close, or at least the final score wasn't, but it was at times. Like, there was a point where the Dodgers were just down by 1 run even after that grand slam, and you just feel like they were 1 hit away from tying it up in many instances up until that 8th inning. So it'll be interesting to see. And of course, we will talk a little bit more about this game on the other side of our break, as well as Garrett Cole starting on the mound for the Yankees and what that means for that team. But did want to thank you guys for being here in the PHNX Sports YouTube channel, watching wherever you're watching. Make sure you subscribe, sign up for notifications. That way you don't miss whenever we go live. Hit that like button, subscribe on your favorite audio podcast app, leave us a review. But most importantly, sign up right now to become a member of our PHNX Diehards. We have our introductory diehard offer of just $48 for the first year. It's just $4 a month billed annually, and you all pay more for coffee than that. So join us over here. We're building something special here at this network, and we want you to be a part of it. Of course, this new offer gets you all of this stuff. You get your diehard membership, you get your free t-shirt of your choice from the locker, access to all of our premium written content, entrance to the Discord lounge, and discounts on all of our events. So we would love it if you join us, become part of the PHNX family. Of course, Dalton's an honorary member already. So join Dalton and become part of this whole family that we got going on over here. On the other side of this break, like I said, we're going to talk a little bit more about the stats from this game, as well as give out our King Snake. Spoiler alert, I've still learned my lesson, but we'll do that here shortly, so don't go anywhere. Of course, we are very proud to partner together with Sanderson Ford. Of course, if you are in the market right now for a new vehicle, make sure to check out Sanderson Ford and all of the deals that they have right now. Sanderson has given you big payoffs like 0% financing on new 2024 F-150s, Escape, Edge, Explorer, and Expeditions. Of course, when you add up all the sales, including retail and fleet sales, they sell more Fords than anyone in the nation. Sanderson Ford is also America's most awarded Ford dealership for customer satisfaction. So go check them out. They're family owned and operated through 3 generations. They thrive on a no hassle sales technique, no pressure, no nonsense. So of course, check out all that they have to offer this month. It must be financed through the Ford Motor Credit OAC for all their great deals. See dealership for details right now. Also, of course, make sports more fun, including this World Series. It's already a whole lot of fun, but you can make it more fun with Bet365. Right now, Bet365 offers the widest range of games and markets available for live in-game betting across 78 sports. Bet365 pioneered live in-game betting, so of course you know that they have the best options. Right now, new customers can choose between two offers when they sign up for a new account. Use our code of PHNX365 to sign up, deposit $10, and choose either between a bet and get offer where you can place a $5 bet or more and receive $150 in bonus bets, or a first bet safety net offer where you can place up to a $1,000 bet. And if your qualifying bet loses, you will receive a matched refund in bonus bets. Download the Bet365 app. Use that code of PHNX365 when you sign up. Choose your offer and find out why it is never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or over and physically located in Arizona. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP, text NEXT STEP to 53342, or visit problemgambling.az.gov. All right, well, let's take a look at the count presented by our friends at Desert Financial Credit Union. Yankees really poured on the offense in this one. They outscored the Dodgers 11-4. They outhit the Dodgers 9-6. Had a ton of opportunities with runners in scoring position. They went 4 for 15 to the Dodgers 1 for 7. Yankees had 6 extra base hits to the Dodgers 4, and then their expected batting average there just through the roof at 361 to the Dodgers 208. This one was a pretty thorough ass kicking tonight. And again, I know in baseball, I've seen it firsthand. You've seen it firsthand. We're Diamondbacks fans. We know that offense doesn't carry over from one game to another. There's no aggregate scoring in this sport. But it really does feel like this Yankees offense has been rather listless. And tonight it like the light turned on. It felt like it took a little while, but it definitely felt like something changed. Now, part of it could have just been facing, some of these low leverage relievers that Dave Roberts was using that he probably wouldn't use in other situations throughout this series. But getting right is getting right. Doesn't matter who it's against, right? So it's like if you kind of zone in, you could find yourself, maybe teeing off on Jack Flaherty in Game 5 tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to what I was a little talking about a little bit earlier, where the risk is, okay, you're throwing your B squad, you're resting your A squad, but you might heat up some of these bats like Soto and Judge because these guys have been ice cold. And, maybe that one hit, that one at bat, you kind of figure out what's going on. They're talking about Judge mechanically being just a little bit late on things this postseason. His timing has not been down. If he figured it out tonight and that can carry over, that's a huge component. Like we are talking about the AL MVP. And quite frankly, like we as a media have been discussing about how bad he's been, but it's been like super bad. A guy who hit 58 home runs, expected to win the AL MVP this year, has been absolutely atrocious on an offense that is reliant basically on him and Soto and the occasional Giancarlo bash at some point. And when today Anthony Volpe is the guy that comes through, that's great, but you need something from Aaron Judge. You need something from Juan Soto. You need your 300 million, 400 million, dare I say, more and obviously more and more for Soto this offseason. You need those guys to come through in these biggest moments.
You got your young guys in Austin Wells and Anthony Volpe doing it, right? And I mean, that's
Verdugo.
Again reminiscent of the Diamondbacks last year, where you're just kind of like, do they know any better? Are they just too young to not know any better of what's going on and how big this moment is? It feels like that sometimes. Maybe that's what's causing the big stars to tighten up and not be loose in that moment. So much is expected of them. So much is expected of them on any given night when they play baseball. The pressure is always there for Aaron Judge. Every time someone watches him at the dish, they expect to see a home run and are disappointed if they don't, for the most part, right? So you learn to live with that as a player, but this is a different level of expectation, especially when you're kind of getting knocked around and beaten in every facet of the game by the Dodgers. The Dodgers are just flat out playing better baseball than the Yankees. And that, I mean, there were times tonight that you could even say that the Yankees weren't, 100%, right? Like they're still not playing completely error-free baseball, but the offense was enough tonight to overcome any small mistakes that they made.
I will say I'm kind of shocked this is going to Game 5 because the first 3 games, like sure, the first game went to extra innings and Freddie Freeman hits the walk-off grand slam, sure. But Game 2 and Game 3, like there's nothing the Yankees did that gave me hope for them to win Game 4. The only hope, honestly, was that the Dodgers were kind of giving this game. It's like, all right, here comes our B and C squad. If you can't beat them, you do not deserve to be playing in Game 4 of the World Series right now.
Yeah.
And, the Yankees offense finally came through, potentially carries over. You have your ace coming on tomorrow. This is it. This is your ride or die situation the rest of the year.
You have to feel pretty good about that, right? You have to feel pretty good about in the final game, in this season for the Yankees at home, that you have Garrett Cole versus Jack Flaherty going, and that, you had your offense get that jump start tonight, that you feel pretty good about that. Even when you look at some of the things the Dodgers have done in this series, they're still also missing big contributions from their stars. Ohtani dislocated his shoulder in Game 2, so he doesn't really seem like himself, and that's something that could swing things definitely in the Yankees' direction now, because again, he's not 100%. He doesn't seem to be able to do the things on the base path he's normally doing, stealing bases, all of that kind of stuff. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that have kind of changed from Game 1 to now, right? And again, the Yankees I still feel like the Yankees have a better situation as far as their pitching goes, and could make this series interesting. I don't expect them to. I don't really sincerely deep down in my
Come
heart think the
on,
Yankees are.
Derek.
I
Let's
want to
hype
see
them
it.
up.
I
Let's
am so
go.
sick, Dalton.
Come
I'm so
on.
sick of watching these two teams play each other already. But I am willing to go to a game 7. I am all in on that. Like
Right.
that's really the only way that I think this series as a whole kind of rebounds from people being disappointed about it. And it's only a disappointment because the Dodgers are so damn good. Nobody really wants to see a sweep when you have this level of talent going head to head. What people want to see is a good game. They want to see a good series that delivered 100% in game 1, right?
Yep.
All of the excitement, all of the drama, everything you could ask for. And even going down 2 games in LA, you didn't feel like the Yankees were completely out of it. But game 3, the loss in game 3 was demoralizing to those of us that are baseball fans that aren't even rooting for any of these teams. Game 3 was like, oh, this sucks. This is going to go this way. I thought this was going to be better than this, right? And so like realistically, I think that's what all baseball fans are rooting for that don't actually root for either of these teams. Either that or they're rooting for both teams to lose, which can't happen. And I get it. So that can't happen. So basically, if that can't happen, can we at least see a good series?
Can I be a little petty for 30 seconds?
You can be petty for a whole minute if you want.
Oh,
You got
60
the
seconds of
floor.
petty?
Yeah,
Huge.
please.
If the Yankees lost game 4, right? This would have been one of the worst World Series of the 21st century. Like we're talking about Yankees Dodgers. We're talking about two of the biggest markets. MLB is salivating at the opportunity to have the Yankees and Dodgers. They're doing a freaking documentary about it. And it almost became the opportunity where the Dodgers just swept them in 4 games, and that was that. And I'll be honest, a lot of my coworkers who are Yankee fans, I heard it last year where, Rangers, Diamondbacks, this is the worst. 2 small markets, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And now, like there's an opportunity where they got their ass beat, and their series would have been way worse than the Diamondbacks Rangers series. And it was playing out very similarly. Outside of the game 2 that the Diamondbacks had, I guess that was the Yankees version of it tonight, where they put up a big win. Because game 1, exact same thing.
And it's funny because it's like fantasy football, right? When you're watching fantasy football and you get a touchdown early, like your world is everything. But if you go a whole quarter with your running back scoring you less than 2 points, you're like, you're broken and you're miserable and I hate you. It doesn't matter if those points come in the 3rd quarter or the 4th quarter.
Nope.
You've already kind of given up on them as a person, right? So again, there's such a difference between the Diamondbacks tying that series at 1.
Yes.
Especially in Texas, and then coming back to Chase Field, having it be a 1-1 series versus this series being 3-0 by the time we get to tonight's game, right? Then it's funny because, the end result could still be the same. It could still be, the similar outcome, but this was so much more depressing and devastating to Yankees fans. It was so much of a letdown to baseball fans that there just wasn't more of a fight. And it's simply because the Dodgers go up 3-0, right? So I hope for game 5 to be a Yankees win. I want to see more baseball. I don't want this to end. But more importantly, I think once we get to a 3-2 series, I know we're going back to LA. I know at that point the Dodgers still have the advantage, but it very much feels like a series at that point of being 3-2. And I think that is what we all want. We want a series. We want to feel like there's a chance. And if somehow they make history and extend this to 7 games, I don't know if I like the Dodgers' chances at that point. I'll just be honest.
20 years. It happened 20 years ago. Is this a simulation? People are talking.
That's what I've heard. I've heard I'm just flying in a tube inside of a matrix somewhere or whatever. But anyway, we've talked enough about the Yankees. We got some snake talk coming up here on the other side of this break, and we are going to definitely do that. So make sure you don't go anywhere. And, of course, get ready to talk about the Diamondbacks and no more of this Yankee-Dodger nonsense. Of course, I'm thirsty, not only from talking, not only from the World Series, but just in general. And I need Circle K in my life. I need America's Thirst Stop. Of course, you also need it right now. If you are a Inner Circle member, you can get any size Froster or Polar Pop for just 79 cents. Of course, you can join the Inner Circle for absolutely free by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions do apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for details. When you do, you'll get your first 5 Polar Pops for absolutely free. You'll get buy 5, get 6 one free on a selection of Circle K products. And you'll also save 25 cents per gallon on your first 5 fill-ups, which is extraordinarily important in today's economy. So fill yourself up for cheap, fill your gas up, fill your car up for cheap with gas, and stop by America's Thirst Stop. Of course, it is the best place to stop when you're going on a road trip. So make sure to do that. It's cooling down here in Arizona, so I know it's almost road trip time. Of course, make sure to stop by Circle K. Also on your road trip, make sure you are ready with a solid pair of shades. Plan accordingly with good sunglasses from our friends at Shady Rays. Get ready for, I guess, an outdoor season. We're weird around here, Dalton. Our outdoor season a lot of times starts mid-October, end of November, because that's when it cools down enough to go outside. But of course, if you have a great pair of sunglasses from Shady Rays, you'll be ready for the outdoors. Shady Rays, their shades have durable frames, crystal clear optics, and of course, hundreds of styles to choose from. So you will find the perfect pair. Plus, they have the craziest broken and replacement plan in all of eyewear. If you break your Shady Rays or lose them, even on day one, they will have your back. They'll send you out a free pair, no questions asked. Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use code PHNX for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. All right, Dalton, I know you have your own concerns with the Yankees. I know New York has a lot going on there, but we have a lot of concerns here in Arizona for the Diamondbacks heading into 2025. I know the biggest concern is some of the free agent losses that we are looking at. It seems unlikely that the Diamondbacks are going to be able to bring back several of their, I guess, power bats from this past offseason. Jock Peterson, Randall Grichuk, Christian Walker, all 3 of those guys going to be very expensive to bring back most likely. And with the money kind of committed, which is another big concern, of what they already are committed to, it doesn't look like they will be able to really afford to bring all of those guys back. What are your thoughts on that? And what are your other concerns that you might have for the Snakes for 2025?
So let's start with the impending free agents because, free agency is going to come up. It could be sooner rather than later, pending on the Yankees-Dodgers series.
Yeah.
It starts with Christian Walker, right? Like Christian Walker is the guy. He's been around for quite a while and has been Gold Glove, Platinum Glove caliber defender, power bat, and he had big shoes to fill. Like, listen, he came in for Paul Goldschmidt, and he's played absolutely fantastic his time in Arizona. It stinks that he's probably not going to be re-signing. I think of the names that you mentioned, I think it's most unlikely that Walker comes back. I'm anticipating he gets a 3-year deal that's
right,
out of the Diamondbacks pay range. If I had to guess, I think there's going to be a team that's going to be very interested in him. It starts
there's going to be several teams, right? Like there's a lot of interest in Christian Walker.
There should be. I think, I think there should be heavy interest. I think first base is a weird position where, teams are either set or they're like, oh, I think this guy could be really good. But, Alonso is also a big domino in this effect, like in this aspect of it too. Mets miss out on Soto and Alonso. I think that's a spot where Walker could slide in and be like an easy, Steve Cohen needs to overpay for someone. But I was off of Christian Walker. The name I'm really curious about this offseason is Jock Peterson. Jock Peterson has been a gun for hire. And this year we were lucky enough to have him in Arizona, and he had one of his best years of his career since being an LA Dodger. And I think he made a lot of money this offseason. I'm curious if he gets a multi-year deal for the first time in a while. But Jock would be a tough one to lose. You lose Christian Walker, you lose Jock Peterson, 2 guys who both hit 23-plus home runs this year, even with Walker going on the IL. Jock would be a tough loss alongside Christian Walker, and those are my 2 biggest worries in terms of free agent departures.
Yeah. No, and I mean, of course, Jock, Randall Grichuk, they had career years, basically. And I mean, a lot of it was the platooning. It was the DH, the 2 double-headed DH, but Grichuk had his value, I think, in the field at times for this team. I think the versatility that it gave Torrey was incredible, and it really showed in a lot of those games that those guys came through late, or Torrey could switch it up and kind of turn to one or the other late in the games. But it does feel like that maybe all three of those guys are gone. So where do they get that power from? Where do they generate those particular RBI and home runs from? And I mean, I know that there is rumors maybe started by this show. I don't
Love
know
rumors.
about maybe Paul Goldschmidt coming back. We have talked a little bit about Goldie being, kind of a decent value fit. We also talked about Carlos Santana being incredibly old. No, incredibly
Yeah,
comparable to Christian Walker, believe it or not, even defensively,
he had a
which is
good season.
crazy at the
Yeah.
age that he is playing that level of baseball, right? So, I mean, again, there are some options out there, and I'm sure the Diamondbacks, Mike Hazen, is going to have to be a little creative here with how he fills some of these roles without having the payroll flexibility that they had last season.
Listen, I mean, I'm a big Goldschmidt guy. I think most Diamondback people. I mean, look at this. I got 2 freaking Goldschmidt things hanging up behind
Gross.
me. So I would be all in for Goldschmidt. I think I think he's reasonable. Like I think that's a reasonable option. The one thing, it's my disclaimer. Like just be ready if it happens. Do not expect him to be 2013 Paul Goldschmidt. Do not expect him to be 2015
Sure.
Paul Goldschmidt. He's
Yeah.
much older. He had his struggles this year. He did bounce back towards the end of the season. Like he did, it's not like he finished off poorly, like completely bad and like out of the league. But he's older. The defense is starting to become a little bit of a question. He was striking out a lot more than he had in the past, though he's been a strikeout guy his whole career. He's been chasing more. So there are concerns. Not hitting the ball is hard. Would love to see Goldie back in the uniform, but only at the right price and if Walker's gone.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that. And I mean, again, there is a little bit of a like, if there's somebody that you're going to spend your money on, spend it on Christian Walker. That's the best replacement for Christian Walker is Christian Walker. But I mean, I don't know. There's just the math doesn't really add up for us when we're taking a look at the numbers and what they're going to have on the payroll next year. You have Mike Hazen making some comments to the media, essentially that, believe it or not, Ken Kendrick is going to push money into this team if he believes that they can win, and he believes that they can win in 2025. I don't think that that's that out of the question, to be honest. I think that there's a lot of pieces that are currently part of this team, mostly pitching, that could be much different next year, even though they were a huge disappointment this year. But I mean, there's still just a lot of other things I think to be concerned about. The Dodgers, that's just something to continue to be concerned about in 2025. When you see them go on this roll, you see them kind of decimate some of the best teams in baseball. You see them trample over the Mets and all of their good luck charms. They walked right over the OMG sign. They stepped right on Grimace's head. They kicked the pumpkin out of Pete's hands. They took, what was the kid's name? The Rizzler? They shoved him in his locker and bullied him.
No,
and they went right onto the World Series, pal. They just walked right over the Mets. I mean, this Dodgers team is incredible. And again, it's just something that it's a team that isn't going anywhere, right? Like there's these terrible, terrible rumors about them adding Juan Soto, which just seems like putting a hat on a hat. And I mean, just the fact that this team is going to continue to try to be the best team in baseball until the end of time is something we just are going to always have to deal with.
I think that's the biggest point, right? Like, if the reason to not spend money is because the Dodgers are good and the Dodgers are a threat, the Diamondbacks are never going to spend money again because the Dodgers are always going to be a threat. They're going to spend their money. They're always going to be really good. They're just inevitable. And by the regular season, like, listen, it sucks to say they always win the NL West. 12 of the last 13 years they've won it. I hate saying that stat. It's a fact. It's got to be said. So let's just put the Dodgers. You can't even put that into the equation. There's 2 things I'm hoping for. Number 1, Jordan Montgomery is going to have a full spring training. So he was awful. Did I say how bad he was? He's awful. Hopefully in 2025, that's not as bad. Like Greinke had his issues the first year too in his contract and was pretty darn good the rest of his career with Arizona. Now, granted, Monty was way, way worse than Greinke's first year, but We've also seen flashes of Monty in 2023. Still gives me nightmares in the World Series. Hopefully he kind of gets that form back for 2025. And Erod, Erod signs that 4-year deal. He was hurt for the first half of the season. He had some flashes. The numbers and overall consistency wasn't there since coming back from injury. But I do have some hope for Erod having a full year, being healthy. Please just have a left-handed pitcher stay healthy in the rotation. That would be awesome.
Yeah. And honestly, I mean, I don't know, man. Those guys, you have to play for each other in baseball, but there's 3 guys that have everything in the world to play for themselves individually. Montgomery, Gallen, and Merrill Kelly, they're all playing for their contracts beyond 2025. And I mean, as much as we wanted to see Christian Walker play out of his mind this season, that didn't exactly happen. So that he did have a good season. I'm not going to ever take away from a season, like the numbers that he put up. But we both know that it could have been better, and we both know that he wanted it to be better, considering that this was the end of his, end of his contract, right? So, again, it doesn't always work out that way, but as far as motivations are concerned, Montgomery, Gallen, and Kelly have all the motivation in the world to come out and be the best versions of themselves that they've ever been next season.
Absolutely. I mean, you nailed it right on the head. The pitching, that was the downfall and pitfall of the Arizona Diamondbacks in 2024. They would have had the highest ERA since the Twins, and I believe in 2009 to make the postseason. And that was the number 1 offense this year in baseball. So obviously the pitching has to bounce back from next year.
If we were just mediocre. If we were just mediocre, we'd be in the postseason. My God, it's amazing.
There is some fatigue. I mean, I think Brent Strom was a fall guy for the whole pitching situation. Fatigue from the World Series, maybe not managing properly. That's a whole nother story. I'm curious to see what they would do in terms of adding this offseason. I think that would be my biggest question mark on the Diamondbacks, because I think we know the losses already. Like, Walker's going to be gone. Peterson's probably gone. Gritchick's definitely gone. Like, those 3 guys, I'm assuming the big 3 are gone. What did the Diamondbacks do to make this team competitive in 2025? We talked about the Dodgers. They're always going to be there. The Padres, now low-key, a lot of roster moves are going to be happening in San Diego. They have a lot of guys in free agency this year. They're not going to retain them all. It's not the same ownership, so I'm very curious to see how they interact during this offseason, what they're going to do and try to compete in the NL West. I'm very curious to see how the Diamondbacks add. I just hope they don't subtract and shed payroll. That would be the worst feeling after an 89-win season.
Yeah. I think the biggest concern for me is, how does the change at coaching impact this team? You brought up Brent Strom being a fall guy. They fired Dan Carlson. They fired Mike Fetters, right? These are they fired the entire pitching coaching staff. They also lose Tony Perez-Chica at third base, who was a big mentor, big coach for the guys as far as defense was concerned and other things. And I am concerned there might be more losses. I think that there's a good chance. And again, this is just pure speculation based on one thing Torey said during his final, I think, media appearance of the year, but that Jeff Bannister could be offered a managing job outside of Arizona and possibly consider it or take it. Or even maybe, Bannister in general is just kind of strikes me as the guy that, like, is ready to not be a part of this world every day in and day out. Like, still be a part of baseball, kind of like what he did when the Diamondbacks hired him. I think he was at a college in Colorado, if I'm not mistaken. I might be mixing that up, but there was, I mean, again, it just kind of like be a little bit more low key, still involved with baseball, but not, as a bench coach for a major league team. Yeah, I don't know how any changes like this around Torey could impact Torey as a manager or impact the team. Now, there's a lot of people that have said Brent Strom was the fall guy. You're not the only person to feel that way. Meanwhile, I have heard things at times about people having disagreements and not really vibing with the way that Brent Strom does things. Now,
absolutely,
I think it's all based on personality and what type you are and how you like to be coached, how you like to be managed, what you like being told to you as a pitcher when you are struggling on the mound and you have your pitching coach come out there and speak to you, right? Like there's been, Jesse and I have talked about it a bunch. Jesse still doesn't believe it to this day, but that Brent Strom will go out there and try to break the tension with a joke or something humorous or something funny, just trying to ease the tension a bit, and that's kind of the way that he coaches. And maybe in the moment you don't want to be joked with by your coach to try to break the tension, or maybe, whatever. I don't know. That's just a small example, but I think that there are times where, Brent Strom, despite being a legend in the game, despite being one of the best pitching coaches in Major League Baseball history, maybe some of his takes and some of his methods are a bit outdated, and players might want something a bit more modern or a bit more what they're used to, possibly playing on another team or for another organization. I don't really know. There's not a lot of information I have to base that on, but I've heard enough things to make me think maybe not everybody is in love with Brent Strom in the organization. Maybe not everybody on the pitching staff is in love with Brent Strom, and maybe they just wanted to try to do something different, considering that this was one of the worst pitching staffs, if not the worst pitching staff in all of baseball this year. You said it earlier. It would have been the history for them to make the playoffs with the ERA that they had. Now, a lot of it is reasons, factors, fine, right? Injuries, a lot going on. Teams, fatigue from the World Series last year. Jordan Montgomery's weird offseason. A lot
Slow
of
starts from the offense.
excuses and factors and variables that you could bring up. It's also something that every team deals with, and not every team has go this, sideways on them, not go this badly for them. So I think there's a point where when you take a look at the pitching staff as a whole, you hear things like at one point we heard that there was something that was a problem with the entire pitching staff that Brent Strom needed to address. And that wasn't early on in the season, my friend. Dalton, that was like in the final 2-3 weeks of the season that there was something he needed to address with the entire pitching staff that they were doing wrong. So I don't know.
A little bit of a concern. There's one point I do want to touch upon for Brent Strom, and I just guess coaching in general. You could be a great coach, and not everyone's going to agree with you with your philosophies. But the one thing that I think great coaches do, whether you're a pitching coach, hitting coach, whatever, you know how to coach a certain player. You mentioned it. There are certain guys who are on the mound who are bulldogs, right? That have an aggressive mindset, and you're not going to be able to joke with those types of guys. Like, you got to kind of fire them up, get them angry, And there are other guys who are the complete opposite, who are guys that are maybe happy-go-lucky, need jokes, kind of need to break the ice. Each coach has to know how to coach said player, their attitudes, their egos, what they do best.
Sure.
And apparently it seems that, not to say he was stuck in ways, but maybe he didn't do his to the best of his abilities to coach.
That's a good point. Like a good coach should adapt and know how to manage guys individually and know what to use to motivate them, right? And like maybe part of the problem is it was more about adapting to his style of coaching rather than his style of coaching adapting to you as an individual. I don't know. I still think that when you label it as being Brent Strom didn't deserve to be fired, there's part of me that agrees with you, because I think Brent Strom was a brilliant baseball mind when he was the coach of this team, and listening to him and all the different, in all the different conversations we had, he always he would explain things to us he didn't need to take the time to explain. But then when he did, you just, even as a non-athlete, as a non-pitcher, the light bulb would go off in your head. And you're like, oh, I suddenly understand the game of baseball so much more than I did 5 minutes ago, right? And that's the kind of mentor coach that Brent Strom is. I think that he's a tremendous person, and I always enjoyed speaking with him. Again, there were people, I think someone asked in the chat if I heard or saw or heard something. I mean, just I've heard things from other media members. I've heard things a little bit off the record, but nothing particular, nothing that would have ever thought in my mind that it would have caught, like Brent Strom being terminated or let go was not something I truly expected. However, I probably should have, when you look at the coaching or at the pitching staff's numbers across the board. It's not just one particular guy. It's not just, it's not just a this reason or that reason. It was just a poor performance from lots of different guys. And in many instances, it left the coaching staff kind of scratching their heads and kind of wondering what was going on with, why all of a sudden, we lost our closer. Why all of a sudden could our closer not close games? Why all of a sudden did the guy that we spent $25 million on become one of the worst pitchers in baseball? Why is everybody injured? Why is everybody keep getting injured? Why they come back and then get injured again?
Why are people starting slow beginning of the year, having
exactly.
3 bad months or 2 bad months?
Right. There comes enough questions about the pitching staff to pile up that eventually, even if you're not blaming Brent Strom, you just feel like a change needs to be made to try to turn this thing around before you no longer have Montgomery, Gallen, and Kelly as part of your pitching staff.
To go off your point about the rotation real quick too, like you have 3 guys that are pitching for a new contract this upcoming season. Like this is the window for the Diamondbacks to go after it in 2025, because you're probably not going to retain a couple of these pitchers, if not all 3, which is a scary thing to hear. But this is it. Like pitching is hard to find. The Diamondbacks were aggressive in doing so this past offseason. It didn't work out for 2024, but you got your second chance, and it might be your last chance in terms of this quote unquote super competitive window with this roster currently with the Diamondbacks. So hopefully you have bounce back performances, new pitching philosophies, everything clicks, hopefully.
Apparently, according to Piece of Yoshi, I said, I think he just doesn't want to be a part of this world anymore. According to Jeff
disagree with that. I can see that. What was he, 77? Good for him. Like,
I think he's meaning that I'm making it sound like he doesn't want to be part of this world anymore. I think that's what he's saying. And he's saying that statement was out of pocket. It might have been. But see, Dalton understood what I was saying. Part of the MLB world, right? Like, I think there's a lot of guys that are completely addicted to baseball and never want to stop working in it in some capacity. It's one of those games that you can really, you really can be like 100 years old and still contributing to the game in a meaningful way, right? In some way, but it does get pretty, it just gets pretty hard to be on the road to be a part of the 162 game regular season as a coach. It's a difficult grind. So
spring training.
My point about that is I could understand him doing something different that wasn't necessarily taking a managing job. Not to mention he would be an absolutely outstanding manager for any team. I'm just concerned overall about the coaching staff, the changes, and, again, how it's going to impact this team next year. I really do feel like, Torey does have a great coaching staff around him. And if he doesn't have that around him anymore, like it's going to be on him at this point. He's going to be somewhat exposed. And I think that if the Diamondbacks continue to have similar shortcomings next season that they had this year, you'll know who to blame it on. I don't think there'll be a doubt, at that point.
Absolutely. Derek, I do want to ask the chat. Awesome. Because this is probably my last time until the opening of free agency starts being with you. What is, for both you and the chat, the one move you want the Diamondbacks to make to bolster their team, coaching staff, whatever it may be, going into 2025? What do the Arizona Diamondbacks have to do? One move.
I honestly, as crazy as it is, and I hate to keep repeating it over and over, but I think it's bring back Christian Walker. I think that if this team does have that small market mindset at times, and it does have that mindset that, hey, we'll move on from this guy once he starts becoming a high price guy. Mike Hazen once said that trading away Paul Goldschmidt was his biggest regret. And I think that, again, Christian Walker going to another team could be the similar regret. I think it could be one of those situations where you look back, you say, man, we could have had him for 3 years, 65 million or whatever it took. It seemed crazy now, because if he goes to another team and absolutely, takes his game up to that next level, which I feel like Christian Walker would do that. Like if Christian Walker got a significant contract from any team, he's going to go there and he's going to just play his heart out. And I mean, again, this year, things didn't really go great for him because of that injury, but he was still a damn good baseball player despite the fact that he missed some time. So I really do think Christian Walker coming back means more than just bringing back his production. I think it sends a message to the rest of the team that if you are here and you are going to play this caliber of defense and this caliber of offense and be this caliber of player that Christian Walker is, we are going to reward you and we are going to keep you here as a part of this core and a part of this franchise for the future.
I love it. I completely agree. Walker, it would be my priority too. If you can get him back, great. I don't expect it. Would be awesome. Knock on wood. The hypothetical that I would bring up, I'm like, oh, this would be pretty sick. Bullpen needs some help too. They tried getting Dylan Floro this deadline, and that completely backfired. Obviously, AJ Puck had been fantastic, one of the best acquisitions ever. Who just said that this is exactly where I'm going for, sign or trade an elite closer. I'm going with a great potential setup man or closer. Jeff Hoffman of the Phillies had a remarkable season. I would prefer a left-handed reliever, like a Matt Strom type for that Phillies have, but Jeff Hoffman had a fantastic year. Been quietly one of the better relievers in baseball over the last couple of seasons. That would be huge on the back end of a bullpen that, as we know, has had their struggles last year and the year before, besides the postseason run. So a guy like Hoffman would be huge for a team that wants to contend.
Well, we are going to wrap up here, guys, but if you want to see more of this conversation, make sure to join us over at gophnx.com. And thank you again for stopping by for those of you over on Samsung. Of course, Dalton, I know that this postseason hasn't been easy as a Diamondbacks fan to watch, all of this stuff go on. And I also feel like, and again, this is loser talk, so the chat is going to destroy me for this, but I feel like watching the postseason that despite the fact I'm disappointed in the Diamondbacks, not making it, not advancing, I don't have this strong feeling in my heart that as we watch the World Series, that this would be the Diamondbacks playing the Yankees here instead of the Dodgers. Maybe it's just how good some of these teams are. Maybe it's just how good, the Dodgers single-handedly were. Maybe it's how the Mets seem to have everything going for them. Maybe it's just how potent San Diego's offense was. And I could only imagine if they were at our field talking trash to our fans and getting batteries thrown at them or whatever. Like there is a lot that I look at this playoff and again, I guess maybe it's loser talk. Maybe it's just me coping, but I feel like I don't know how significant of a run the Diamondbacks would have had in the playoffs. I don't know how that changes things. I look at a team like the Phillies. I look at other teams that played 2 games and then got swept and then were out of it. Like I know that, like, for instance, the Phillies considered this to be a huge failure and are talking about massive roster changes and maybe even coaching changes and stuff. Like they're taking this really seriously. And that's a team that made the playoffs and had a bye in the first round. So like your level of dissatisfaction is based on your situation, but I just can't help again, but cope by thinking I don't think the Diamondbacks would have had the same magical run they had last year. I don't feel like this was their year, even if they had made the playoffs.
NL was pretty stacked. National League was definitely better than the American League this year, and we've seen it in the playoffs. I will say if they were in the American League, could have been a different story. I think,
anything could happen to the American League.
American League was a crapshoot, and I think they could have the National League. You could argue the 4 best teams in the playoffs are all in the National League this year.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Well, buddy, I thank you so much for stopping by, for sharing your time with us. Of course, you can follow him on Twitter at dfeely14.
Thanks. Yes.
I got it that time.
Got it.
All right. Yeah, all right. Well, I'm at cap_caveman with a K. Of course, our guy on the 1s and 2s tonight is none other than Kev Big Sexy. Kev, by the way, that's his new nickname. It's Big Sexy Kev. Kev Tom Wrights on Twitter. Again, you have to figure out how to spell that on your own. That's a fun game that I'm giving you. Our show is at PHNX_D-Backs. But of course, all roads do lead to at PHNX_sports on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Dalton, again, appreciate you, man. I am rooting for your Yankees, despite what this chat will tell you. Don't believe a word they say when it comes to who my rooting interests are for in this series. You think I'd have a mustache like this and root for the Dodgers? Come on, get out of here.
Wow.
But I'm very, very much looking forward to tomorrow's game. And again, I will be chatting with you, and we appreciate you stopping by, man.
Always a pleasure hopping on, talking some snakes, talking some ball. Thank you again for having me. Maybe when I see you next time, Yankees are World Series champions. We change the luck. Bad luck for the Dodgers.
You and I getting together has made some crazier things happen than that. Look at what that fan interference happened tonight. That's the most insane thing I've ever seen. But
again tomorrow, bet on it.
Yeah. All right. Well, guys, thank you for stopping by. We appreciate your time. Jesse is back tomorrow, so we will be back in studio. But we will be doing another post-game show. We got nothing but post-game shows while the World Series is going on, so we will be back for that. In the meantime, we thank you again for your time. We hope you have a wonderful evening. We'll see you tomorrow. And remember, kids, baseball is fun, but it's so much more fun if you don't get kicked out of the baseball game for trying to rip a ball out of Mookie Betts' hands.
We all silly like the mayor.